Hey everybody, how's it going? Brian Cates here, and the second edition of Dangerous with Coffee. Uh, you know, the more coffee I drink, I found this is true for the last couple of years. The more coffee I drink, the more awake I get. And the more awake I get, the more I see things that I never saw before. And I've talked many times about the journey that we're all on during this great awakening that continues to unfold. More and more people wake up every day from the illusions, from the clever illusion they've been surrounded with their entire lives. They wake up, and a lot of the waking up process has to do with looking, not just understanding what's going on right now here in America and around the world. A large part of the Great Awakening have to do with waking up to what was really going on back in the past. You basically not just have to completely reframe everything about your understanding of what Congress is doing right now, what the president is doing, what our military is doing around the world. You have to look backwards at all of these major events that happen during your lifetime. And you have to constantly reassess them, re-examine them based on what you now know. And I find this process, like almost every week there's some new event from the past. I find myself having to go back and re-examine that. We all know what the big events are, the major events that everybody talks about that we have to reframe. We have to take the old matrix framing, the old brainwashing oligarchs media-owned framing that we were handed all of our lives about that particular event. We have to take it and we have to disassemble it down to the basic facts, and then we have to reframe it based on what we now know. Many people do this with 9/11. The official mainstream media framing that they were handed for 9/11. And that many people, God bless them, there's all those people saying, I was never fooled. I always knew that was bullshit. Hey, more power to you. But most people accepted the framing they were given at the time for 9/11. And that's not their fault. They weren't awake yet. They still trusted all of these people. So with 9/11, the invasion and occupation of Afghanistan for 15 years, the invasion and occupation of Iraq. Well, after we were in Afghanistan for over 20 years, almost 20 years, excuse me, it was Iraq. When you invaded and occupied Iraq for 15 years, we had to stop Saddam Hussein from giving the terrorists. He might give those WMDs he turned out not to have. He may give them to the terrorists. We can't have that. So we went in there and we invaded that country. And, Saddam wasn't a good guy, and we toppled him. And we basically hung around there, and a lot of military contracting and money laundering took place in Iraq for 15 years. I've had to recently go back and re-examine all of this in the last 3 years. Just the military stuff. You know, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, the rise of ISIS, why ISIS was able to rise up and be truly unstoppable. A ragtag bunch of Islamists driving around on these dirt roads, on these highways in Iraq and Syria, in these slow moving cars and trucks, and like nobody could stop them. Nobody could stop them until Donald Trump won an election and got into office. It took him a couple months now to get past all the bullshit of the entrenched Pentagon people, Defense Department people, defense think tanks, fake news media, neocon news media especially. It took him a while to work through all of that to get to the point he could literally start kicking ISIS's ass. There were a lot of people still embedded in our military, in our Congress, in our federal agencies, and getting a lot of money. They have a lot of clout. We now know where they were getting a lot of the money from. But there was a system that was in place when Donald Trump came in back in 2017 that was heavily invested in using ISIS as the excuse, the justification for everything we needed to continue to do, the very lucrative things we needed to continue to do in places like Syria and Iraq. ISIS was just so damn convenient. And then Donald Trump got in there and he ruined everything. He ruined it all. Anyway, yeah, the rise of ISIS, one of the things you have to go back, you have to reassess that. You have to take another look. You have to reframe it. October 7th, another good one. Yeah, got to reframe that. There's the official story that doesn't make any sense. And then there's what really happened. As with 9/11, there's the official story, and then there's what really happened. Then we go all the way back to, what was going on with Noriega. Why did we need to do just cause? Why did we need to invade that island down there that we invaded? Yeah, I know it wasn't the Dominican Republic. There was where we saved a bunch of our medical students. Yeah, they showed this in that movie with Clint Eastwood, Heartbreak Ridge. Yeah, they showed you that we invaded this island. Got to reassess that. You have to reassess everything you think you know about Cuba, everything you think you know about the Vietnam War and the Korean War. You have to go back. I mean, a lot of attention is focused on 1913 these days. About, as more people wake up to just how long this globalist cult has been in control of our country via the massive debt we accrued from all the military adventures they had us engaging in for the last 100 years. And when you dig into this and you begin studying it, you find out about certain elitist groups of very, very wealthy, super rich white people. White people are just awful. Did you know that? I'm making a joke there, all right? But what happens when you go back and study how the modern world has become to understand it today, Western civilization, the modern world, who shaped that? Who directed it? Who guided it? You go back and study these groups like the Fabian Society, all throughout the early 18th century. And then by the 1880s, they're getting very organized. They're planning the next 100, 200 years, how it's going to unfold. I know this sounds crazy when people first hear it. Just like, it sounds crazy when you're first told who did 9/11. It sounds crazy when you're first told that We had a president for 8 years who wasn't even born in America, and his wife is a man. It sounds crazy, all right? I know that. I understand that. It sounds crazy when you're told that they've known for 80, 90 years now what SIDS is, sudden infant death syndrome, and they cover it up and they hide it. It sounds freaking crazy. It sounds crazy when you say they create these viruses in a lab and they release it to do a pandemic to try to keep the world's population down so they can get everybody to take a vaccine that makes you sterile. It vastly reduces the world's population by affecting fertility rates. Sounds crazy. Yeah, sounds woo woo, sounds out there. But the more you study, the more evidence comes out, the more you find out, well, actually, it's not so crazy after all, is it? So it sounds crazy. We talk about these super duper wealthy, rich oligarchs families back in the 1880s and 1890s. And they're having conferences together and they're forming societies and they're talking about how they want to see the next 100 or so years of history unfold, how they're going to write the script for that. You sound like a raving lunatic when you talk like this. Yeah. And by the 1890s or so, they're watching America. They're studying us. I'm sure every single one of these people read the Tocqueville book. They're studying us. Thing. How are we going to get in there and get control of these people whose entire system is set up to make them uncontrollable? How do we hollow that out and get control of it? Now, they came up with a solution. First, you create a central bank. And they tried that a lot of times, throughout you study the 18th century. They tried several times to get a central bank started up. And they run into people like Andrew Jackson and William McKinley, who would not let them do that. They would not let them have the central bank they needed to begin implementing their agenda to get control of America. Andrew Jackson survived. He was impeached, A lot of people don't understand the distinction between the impeachment of a president and then the subsequent Senate trial that follows the impeachment to see whether the impeachable offense rises to the level of making it necessary to remove that impeached president from office, from the White House. They are two different things. Bill Clinton was impeached, but he wasn't convicted at the Senate trial. So he was impeached. It was found that he had committed a crime. But after the Senate heard the evidence and held the trial, the vote reflected the fact that not enough of the senators thought that this crime that Bill Clinton had been impeached over rose to a sufficient level to remove him from the White House. And so he finished out his second term as president of the United States. President Donald Trump was impeached twice and acquitted twice at the two Senate trials that were held. So he was not convicted at the Senate trial. The second trial, the second impeachment was a total farce. He had like 1 week left in his term. But for the the narrative purposes that they wanted to spend the next year or two flogging the January 6th narrative, flogging the January 6th narrative like a dead horse. They impeached him with a week to go in his second term. And of course, he easily survived the Senate trial. They didn't successfully remove him from office. It would be extremely hard for a president who had been impeached twice and then successfully removed from office, even if it was just 1 week left in his term, he was removed from office. It would be more difficult for that man to run for president again, which is why they tried to do it. But it didn't work out. Trump easily avoided removal from office in the second impeachment during the second Senate trial. And so they launched their January 6th thing, and it didn't go anywhere. Andrew Jackson survived being removed from office in his Senate trial by one single solitary vote. I believe God had a hand in that. It was you study the story of the Senate trial of Andrew Jackson. And basically, he was impeached for denying these people the central bank they were demanding. That was one of the key issues about why they impeached him. Andrew Jackson would not give them the central bank control they were demanding. Wouldn't allow it. And it was one young senator, I believe in his first term, came down to deciding he would not vote to convict. And so Andrew Jackson survived the Senate trial. He was not removed from office. He was not removed as the president. William McKinley, of course, was assassinated, chiefly because he was making moves to prevent a central bank. And you go and study the Kennedy assassination and what they did there. He was making moves on silver. There were things Kennedy was doing. They had everything set up the way they. I'm gonna get to 1913 in a minute. So I'm going somewhere with all of this. Okay, I hope you all know that. Kennedy was making moves on silver and some other things that showed them that he was getting ready to make some moves on the Fed to take away a lot of control from the Fed. They could not have that. And people discussed all kinds of various other reasons about why Kennedy was assassinated. But I suspect one of the big reasons was the moves he was about to make on silver and some other things he was getting ready to do that was going to affect the Federal Reserve's control of the U.S. monetary policy. And they said, okay, he's got to go. And I think one of the biggest reasons they tried to put a bullet through Donald J. Trump's head in Butler, Pennsylvania, last July 2024. One of the big reasons they tried to do that, they tried to kill him, was because they understood if he comes back, he doesn't have to face the voters again. He can go for broke, and they knew what he was planning to do with the Federal Reserve. And indeed, we look around and we see moves being made. The crypto wealth fund, and moves being made with Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and moves being made where Trump is putting a spotlight on Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve and their refusal to cut those interest rates, and it's kind of drawing these people out into the light. Now, this isn't for people who are already awake. There's probably some 1/3 of the country that's still asleep, maybe half on this one issue. They still think the Federal Reserve is part of the federal government. They still don't understand the true nature of the Federal Reserve. But you notice that you study in U.S. history, whenever any president or somebody seems to make some move towards that Federal Reserve to try to touch is what has been deemed by these oligarchs' families to be untouchable, things tend to happen very negatively for that particular president. So yeah, these people spent most of the 18th century studying us, trying to figure out how they were going to get back in here and get control back. And they hit on a plan. And a big part of the plan was a Central American bank. They were not in a position to get what they wanted with that. It took a lot of careful maneuvering and planning and strategizing from around 1890 to 1910 to get themselves into position for this. Because a lot of people understood, back then, a lot of people understood what this could lead to a central bank. They did not like it. They did not like that idea. They did not want to see that happen. But 1913 is the key year. It's the year that the Titanic went down. I'm not sure if I say that right. Titanic. It went down, and they had the meeting at Jekyll Island in South Carolina. I think it's where it's at. I drove by there on my way up to an event. I passed the sign, Jekyll Island. Oh, shit. That's where they had the big meeting. All those people got together to put their minds together for how they were going to go about creating the Federal Reserve, the U.S. central banking entity that they were going to control. But to be brief, I'm not going to go exhaustively into this, even though people are fascinated by it. I'm just going to, about 2 minutes, I'm going to give you the outline so I can make some other points about what Donald J. Trump is doing right now today with the Federal Reserve. What they decided was, the plan they hit upon was, we'll create a central bank, we'll buy up their entire political class, we will get America involved in constant, numerous wars and military conflicts. We will amass a debt on these fucking people that is going to be so huge, they will never be able to get out from under our control. So this, in a nutshell, that's the strategy they adopted. We'll create a massive defense industry devoted to the numerous wars and conflicts. There's nothing happening. By God, we'll go make something happen. We will keep constantly feeding the war machine, which is in reality a debt machine. It is a debt machine. And the more debt this country accrues to us, to our Federal Reserve, the higher the debt gets, the higher the interest payments are every year. The more control we have over these people. God, we'll have them by the balls. They have to do whatever we tell them to. Absolutely. Nobody was ever supposed to figure this out. Then, of course, they're building a mainstream media, CBS, ABC, NBC, Time Magazine, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Go back to 1913. When do you think they started? From all the money they almost instantly began looting from the U.S. taxpayer via our treasury. Yes, this started back in 1913, the moment they had a freaking central bank, and they were able to move off of the tariff systems and the trade system paying for our federal government. They moved on to an income tax system. They began taking that money and using it to build a mainstream media to brainwash and indoctrinate the entire U.S. population. That's when, now they were doing some of that before, but this is when they really kicked that stuff into high gear. And you were never ever supposed to know any of this, yes. So we'll get them involved in a lot of wars. 1913. We're ready. Let's kickstart World War One. Let's see how much we can get the United States of America into from that first big worldwide conflict. And it's not just America. These oligarchs' families are international. Now, this is how they got their hooks back into us. They already had central banks all over Europe, you know, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, Bosnia Herzegovina, however you say it. All these countries already had central banks. They already had those people by the balls. But 1913 is when they got us by the balls. So we have our central bank now. Let's kickstart World War One. Let's get all these freaking people around Europe and in the United States massively into our debt. Let's get them massively, deeply under our financial control. The more debt they accrue, the more control we have. Their plan was to build these national debts up to a point it would literally sound comical for anyone to say, let's start paying that off. You have certain people in Congress, their whole job, especially in the neocon conservatarian space. I took the word conservative and I took the word libertarian and I mangled it together and I came up with conservatarian. There are conservatarian people whose one job in Congress is to come out every damn week and tell you how worried they are about the national debt. Oh my God, it's so huge. It's so massive now. It's so terrible. We're never going to be able to pay this off. At the worst, I mean, at best, the most we can do is stop spending so fast. They send people out there to program you with this. I call it the Conservatarian Fiscal Hawk Act, and I fell for that shit for decades. Decades I fell for it before I knew about the Uniparty. He's funded by the same damn oligarchs that control our Federal Reserve Central Bank. Here's Team Red over here. Here's Team Blue over there, and they're slap fighting each other over our money. Isn't that what they do? They go out there and Democrats have proposed some insane new spending policy that's going to rocket our national debt to the moon. And then the conservatarians go out there and fight to stop them. How many years have you been watching that shit and you thought it was real? About 30 years for me, since the late 1980s. Yeah, about 35 years for me. I thought that shit was real. The United States was moved from being a free and independent, mostly free and independent sovereign nation in 1913 to being a debt slave nation. That's the big change that happened when they changed how our government funded itself. They created a central bank and they started up an IRS and they moved from tariff to income taxes. They made us a debt slavery nation. And then they did everything they could. They start incrementally, you know. I know too many people are going to figure it out. If they move too fast, they go too far too fast, people would figure it out. So they went slowly, slowly, incrementally, one war after another, one conflict after another. A lot of these conflicts, they don't even remember. We just remember the big ones, the high points, you know, World War One, World War Two. There's the Spanish-American War. There was the war in the Philippines. Nobody remembers that one, Spanish-American War. They just remember World War One, World War Two, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, the invasion of Afghanistan, the invasion of Iraq. But you look on every year, every other year, there's some other military operation that the United States engages in that cost hundreds of billions of dollars. And the military contracting and the arms sales that go on. Not just for the big conflicts, but for the smaller ones. And then they set up a foreign aid system. The United States started pumping billions of dollars every year in aid to foreign countries. And they all started this in that magic year of 1913. So, what people who are waking up are realizing today is that for both of his terms now, and he had to be clever about how he went about it in his first term, because most of the public wasn't awake yet. But it's certainly becoming increasingly apparent in his second term that Donald J. Trump's agenda is to reverse 1913. It's to reverse it. It's to take us back to where we were before we became that slave nation. And he showed you this at his inauguration, his second inauguration. I believe it was at the big gala ball when he gave a speech right after he did that sword dance. The House of War have now become the House of Peace. Sword dance. See, symbolism means a lot to this globalist cult we're fighting. Donald Trump is constantly using symbolism to rub their faces in the fact they are losing control. The control they've enjoyed for over 100 years, they're losing it. Takes their faces and he rubs it in it. So he does the sword dance, and they understood what that sword dance meant, what it symbolized. House of War is now House of Peace. And then he goes on to say this, he makes a statement. And it strikes the ear, it's weird. If people are grown up, what are we taught? We're a free country here in America. We got, 400 million guns in this country. You know, mom, apple pie, American flag, freedom. We have it all here, baby. We're a free, independent, sovereign nation. You betcha. What did Trump say? Somebody with that kind of programming, there's something Trump said at that brief speech on his inauguration day. I'm not talking about the official inauguration speech. I'm talking about the one he made later at the ball after he does the sword thing. There's something he said. If you're programmed to believe that America's always been a free, sovereign, independent nation, Trump said something that will like sound very funny to you. What he said was this: from now on, the United States of America will be a free, independent, and sovereign nation. A lot of people hearing that went, huh? What? What? What do you mean, Mr. President, sir, when you say, from now on, America will be a free, sovereign, independent nation? What was the last 250 years? Chopped chip chicken liver? What was that? We're the arsenal of democracy. We fund all these militaries around the world. We fight for freedom. You mean, what the hell are you saying? From now on, we'll be a free, sovereign, independent nation. He keeps doing these weird things over the last 6 months. That statement at his inauguration was just one of the weird things he did. Well, Trump's trying to get this idea across to people. When he goes on to say, April 2nd, Liberation Day. Why is April 2nd Liberation Day? Well, that's when the tariffs and all the tariff deals weren't done yet. All the trade deals, it was still in flux. But some of the trade deals, some of the tariffs, if people wouldn't do a trade deal, the tariffs were going to hit and start April 2nd. Trump said it would be April 1st, but it can't be April 1st because people wouldn't take it seriously because they think it was an April Fool's joke. All right, so. Okay. So April 2nd, he called it Liberation Day. Why? Well, if you see what tariffs have done since they took effect, it's outpacing everybody's expectations. I asked Grok, this was like 4 weeks ago. Grok, Trump and Howard Lutnick just said that the tariffs instituted on April 2nd had produced $113 billion in revenue in about 2.5 months. 2.5 months. What do you think it will do by the end of the year? And Grok showed me something there. The AI is garbage in, garbage out. He said it'll probably generate about $117 billion by the end of the year. Even Grok can't keep up with this. The figures we still the figures had not caught up yet. So even Grok is stuck. Now they're saying Trump and Lutnick and Treasury Secretary Bissett saying could be as high as $700 billion by the end of this year. Just from the tariff revenues. After all these trade deals continue to be done and signed. That's like point. Somebody said in relation to the GDP, this is like 0.4% or something like that. That's massive. 700 billion a year so far this year is what they project based on what they've seen so far. And I forget, I don't know what it is now. They were saying 113 billion 3 or 4 weeks ago. And new trade deals got done since then. So one reason this is alarming to the people who control our debt system, they exert control over Washington, D.C. based on the massive debts accrued by the current financial system and the current monetary policy. One reason they're so alarmed by this is that Trump got the federal government to a surplus in less than 3 months. And you remember the same people were screaming, when he rolled out this new trade rebalancing agenda and that's how the tariff policies were going to go. You had literally every single Federal Reserve invested financial expert screaming, "This is insane! You can't do this! Somebody stop him! My God, man, somebody stop him! He's going to wreck the economy. He's going to bankrupt our government. American markets will collapse. Somebody stop this lunatic." And I did that for a couple of weeks. It didn't stop anything. He and Lutnick and Bissett just kept going. By the beginning of July, they announced he got the federal government to a $27 billion surplus in June. That's not supposed to happen. A surplus just 2.5 months in, you already got the federal government to a surplus? How? What? This shouldn't be possible. But look, you go back and you study Donald Trump. He was saying this shit back in the 1980s about the trade policies of this country are literally insane. It's pretty. I mean, if you're America first, and you would expect the people who are handling the trade policy are America first. You would hope they are. And Trump was giving interviews. He was saying for years, the people who are handling our trade policy are literally insane. They're literally insane. They keep doing these policies where nothing they're doing makes any sense whatsoever. They're letting everybody screw us over. I mean, he said this very consistently for decades. He had the same consistent message. These are not America First policies. These are actually policies that are going to harm our markets. They're going to harm American industry. And then he screamed even louder when the same people that were handling the trade policy said, hey, we got a new cool idea. It's called globalism. Let's start offshoring all of our American industries overseas. March of progress. You can't stop it. Okay, and they framed it this way. And he yelled even louder, this is insane. What are you doing? He has had the same consistent method. And he knew how he could fix this. He's telling people the whole time, I know how to fix this. I can fix this. Well, he was easily dismissed back then. Some, the way the tabloids covered him, some sex obsessed alpha male swaggering dumbass, who wants to be a TV star. He keeps showing up in movies and TV shows and wants to be a celebrity. And, so he pretends like he understands trade policy or whatever, and they just dismiss him. It's harder to do that, once he became president back in 2017, people started realizing he actually knows what we've been doing. He's making moves to stop it. We need to get this guy out of there. And then despite all their efforts, all the impeachments, the January 6th stuff, Jack Smith special counsel, the lawfare with Bragg and Fannie Willis and doing the criminal stuff, and then the insane civil stuff, like he defrauded some banks that actually made money on the freaking loans they gave him, and the crazy cat lady that said that he raped her and gave her whatever it was, hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, and they did all of these attempts to keep him from coming back, including, like I mentioned earlier, trying to blow his head off. Right? He comes back, and now it's more obvious than ever. He is deliberately reversing 1913. He's taking the corrupt system that they've used to do nothing but build and build and build and build and build our national debt, our debt to them. He's taking that system and he's utterly destroying it and dismantling it right in front of them. He keeps making these symbolic acts that people don't understand. He makes that weird statement at his inauguration on January 20th of this year. He does Liberation Day on April 2nd. Huh? Weird. He calls for a military parade in Washington, D.C. Huh? Weird. Why do that? Doesn't that cost money? Huh? Weird. Well, he's showing certain people something. This ain't your military anymore. You don't own it. I'm going to fix the debt problem. You will not send our military hither and yon across the polluted plain and across the globe to advance your sick and vile globalist agenda. All your defense contracting, all your money making, I could call it the IMIC, those the military industrial complex. Most people understand that in relation to just America. But as with everything else, there is an international military industrial complex. The UK's got its own MIC. France, Germany, Italy, Spain, they all have their own military industrial complex that needs to be fed, that needs to constantly be fed. Okay. And the U.S. military is the big dog. All these other people have their own little dogs, but they've been using the U.S. military to lead the way on most of their global military adventures. Well, it's international. The whole foreign aid thing, we were not only paying for our big dog, our military, We're paying for most of the other smaller militaries in this international military industrial complex. They've all been feeding off of us. That's something else Donald Trump is stopping by insisting NATO start paying for their own defense, stop freeloading off of us. But these people had everything set up the way they liked it, the way they wanted it. It was beautiful, man. Everything the way they wanted it. It was working. They were afraid this son of a bitch got back in there. He wouldn't give them the new wars that they needed to keep the machine fed. It's hard. I said, it's getting hard out here for a warmonger. Since that Donald Trump asshole came down that golden escalator. Getting hard out there for a warmonger. Especially in the second term. I was playing many times. Trump had limited control in his first term. I don't even think he had actual control of even 1/3 of the federal government in his first term. No, I don't think he did. People say, why didn't Trump try doing all this stuff needed to be done years ago? Why didn't he do this years ago? Well, there's a difference between what you can do and what you can politically survive. A lot of things Trump has done in the last 6 months. If he tried to do this stuff in his first term, not enough of the public was awake back then. Sorry. Don't argue with me about it, all right? Not enough of the public was awake in 2017, 2018 for him to even think about trying a lot of this stuff he's done in the last 6 months. He's made it very clear in the second term, I am reversing your 1913 bullshit where you turned us into your debt slave nation. And you no longer are going to be able to control our military. I am taking control of the United States military away from you. So here it is. It's mine now. It's the American people's military for real now. It no longer belongs to you, and you can't send it anywhere. Then he starts doing weird shit to the White House. He starts putting up massive flagpoles, front and back, flying humongous American flag. What the heck? Why? Why? Well, it's symbolism for people who use symbolism a lot. Not your White House anymore. Kiss my ass. Now, what's his follow up to that? I think I'll completely renovate the Rose Garden. What? I think I'll add a whole new ballroom and pay for it myself. Huh? But once you understand the symbolism thing, the symbolism of this, he's showing these people that have had control of our country via our debt for over 100 years. It's gone. And you ain't ever getting it back. See, this is the thing that really enrages the globalist cult out there. Do you know how incrementally they did most of these moves to get this a level of control that they enjoyed until Donald J. Trump came down that damn golden escalator back in 2015. Do you know how much careful planning and resources were invested? Blood, sweat, tears, prayers to bear. Okay, you know how much they invested in that? It was a lot. Over 100 years of careful planning, incrementally, one small step at a time, grabbing the America's balls harder and squeezing tighter and tighter, tighter, gradually now, gradually. You'll do what we tell you. We own the political class. We own all the important institutions there are. We own the media. We own the Congress. We own this White House. We own D.C. And we own a lot of the state capitals. And we own all of it. You'll never get three of us. They're watching over 120 years of careful planning go right down the shitter. Yeah, I agree with that. But as I said before, how much control do you think Trump actually enjoyed in that first time? I don't think it was much. I don't think it was a lot. How could he? He got the FBI, the CIA, all full of embeds. The Department of Justice, they're all full of embedded cult members out to get him. How much control did he actually have? I tell you what, and he doesn't have full control yet either. But he's got a hell of a lot more than he did the first time around. He constantly finds ways to demonstrate to these people. Not your Washington, D.C. anymore. Not your military anymore. Not your White House anymore. Another good point. Yeah. Even culturally, he couldn't do much. Too much of the country was still asleep. You look at how different it is now. This is something I plan to discuss later. I'm planning on going till about noon, by the way, noon Eastern time, with the show every day from 10 a.m. to noon. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You get 2 whole hours of me and you'll like it. These people had such control of the culture back then. Now, sure, I understand. A lot of it was due to programming. A lot of it was a mirage. You know, they always pretend to have way more cultural control than they actually do. They bluff. They put on a good front. But Trump had to pick his fights very carefully in the culture war in his first term, and that included watching what happened to Roseanne Barr. Because not enough people were awake yet. Now you can contrast that with where we are today. They were able to successfully cancel Roseanne back in 2018, 2019, whenever all that shit went down. When she made that joke about Valerie Jarrett. You wanna find out who really controls you, find out who you're not allowed to mock. There's a lot of wisdom in that statement. Find out who you're not allowed to make fun of. So cancel culture was at its peak back then because these people are fighting to maintain as much control as possible and limit Trump's effectiveness at changing anything until they could get rid of him. Now we're in the second term. What just happened? I'll briefly touch on this before I get back to the Federal Reserve. With Sidney Sweeney, what just happened? If this was still 2017, Sidney Sweeney is gone already. She's gone. They had to, I mean, we watched the examples that were made out of so many people since cancel culture showed up. If they still had the amount of control they enjoyed back in 2017, if they were still maintaining the illusion of cultural control where it mattered, urban areas and stuff like that, if they still had that level of programming and they still had that many people asleep, yeah, Sydney Sweeney would be gone by now. And she and American Eagle would know exactly what would happen to them if they put out this ad campaign. They knew what would happen. So what's changed? Just one of the things about people that are smart. They're able to recognize cultural shifts and they move to take advantage of cultural shifts. Somebody in American Eagle is really smart, probably in the advertising department. It's time to demonstrate that cancel culture is dead. Let's do this by making a series of ads. With now, well, of course, the main thing is to sell jeans here, which I'm sure they're doing at a very good pace. But we're gonna try the left. We're gonna demonstrate that the left will move to try to cancel her and demand that she be canceled, and try and give all these reasons about why she should be canceled. And we're gonna prove to everybody that that bullshit is over. Isn't that what's happening? And before I get back to the Federal Reserve, I had this little bond mark that occurred to me the other day. What's the biggest complaint of the left? I mean, cancel culture harpies out there screaming for Sydney Sweeney. God bless her. I mean, what an amazing person she is. I saw that it looks like she's training for John Wick 5 or something. And she's handling a smooth reload there. Wow, you can tell she's really practiced this. And then the other day, I saw a video of her tuning up a car. She's a car mechanic. She knows the way around cars, guns and cars. Now, I did a funny post. The perfect woman does not exist. Guns and cars. If I was 30 years younger, I might try this. But okay, I'm 61. So they're screaming for her to be careful for this ad campaign because it comes out the tagline for the ad campaign. That's the line that they show. To sell the jeans. Sydney Sweeney has good genes. They spell it Geans genes. Obviously, everybody's supposed to say, "Wow, she's very attractive. She has a very nice body." Okay, jeans. So I mean, instantly the left starts screaming. This is white supremacism. She's white with blue eyes, and this is white supremacism. And her hair is kind of blondish. You're going for the Nordic thing, aren't you? This is a Nazi ad campaign. Ridiculous, I know. So, hey, any American Eagle advertising people out there, I got a good idea for you. You can have this one for free. Take that complaint they're making and turn it on its head. I'm assuming you're making a lot of money now from this Sydney Sweeney American Eagle jeans ad campaign that you have currently ongoing. Take some of that money, go out there, find the most gorgeous black and Asian and Latino models that you can find, and put them in the next couple of ads with Sydney Sweeney. You can call it the Great Jeans Club. We'll call it the Great Jeans Club. And you have a gorgeous white girl, black girl, Asian girl, Latina girl. What are they going to stay in? They all look. They all have great genes. Take that criticism and flip it on its head. Yeah, why not? It's just about her being white. This is a white thing, you know. Hey, they opened that door. It's about race. Okay, fine. Have some fun with it then. Go find yourself a black model and a Hispanic model and an Asian model with fantastic genes and put them in your great genes and put them alongside Sydney Sweeney and have them laugh and have fun together in the Great Genes Club. Sounds like a good idea to me. Anyway, this is how you prove the cultural shift is real. A lot of the cultural shift, the woke people, a lot of that was fake. Most of America never really went along with it. But they were stealing so much of our tax money and handing it to the news media and the entertainment media to pump up this illusion that millions and millions and millions of people were now are going along with the woke tide campaign. You know, the woke mind virus was how Elon Musk described it. We're too powerful. We have control. We're like a Frankenstein monster. We're too powerful. We've got control of too many industries. We control your TV, your movies, your comic books, your video games, your sports arenas. You know, we have too much control. You can't fight this. Just go around with it. Men can be women and all this other shit. That was an illusion. The illusion is dying. Oh, it's like the Wicked Witch of the West. Ah, melting. Oh, my beautiful illusionary evil. Ah, melting. The cultural shift is happening at light speed, okay, because most of the old cultural shift was make believe, it was pretend. The elites were constantly trying to sell this to you. Now, you can't change this. We're the cultural trendsetters, and this is where we say the culture is going. Follow us, follow along behind us, damn it. But we don't follow their stars anymore. No, we don't follow the stars. Sorry. So the cultural shift is happening. Sydney Sweeney is literally Teflon coated. She's completely uncancelable. I don't know if that's the word. Uncancelable. She cannot be canceled. So these people, these oligarchs families that control our Fed, they use a massive amount of wealth, much of which they've been looting from all of us, out of our treasury for over 100 years now, to control almost all of our culture. That's not just in the financial realm, the academic, educational realm, the political realm up there in DC, social media. They try to get control of everything. And what Trump is doing, he's dismantling the system. Don't you never underestimate how important that was, that period of time from February through June, where all the money was cut off from these oligarchs' families, to these oligarchs' families. All of their NGOs were cut off. All the money, Trump has done nothing after planning and preparing and strategizing for the past 8, 9 years or so. Trump had a plan when he came back to begin cutting off the revenue streams that these oligarchs, these globalist cult oligarchs families had been using to exert control around the globe, and especially here in America. He's cutting off their revenue streams one by one by one. That's driving them nuts. Remember when they took a couple of their uniparty Democrat puppets and they actually did a demonstration out there in front of the Social Security Administration building or the Department of Education or whatever it was? Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi standing there. Turn the money back on, damn it. And start saying they're trying to sell this narrative. Oh, 140,000 kids in Africa are going to die this month because you cut off all that USAID money. It's your fault. All these kids are going to die. You should feel guilty about this. And they're trying all their old emotional tricks, and they didn't get anywhere. The money never got turned back on. The one reason it's getting hard out there for a warmonger, one reason they've been trying to start one conflict after another since Trump came back. They want to if they can't make money this way, they can't simply have the contacts inside our federal government send them the 10, 5, 15 billion or whatever it was. Their various NGO groups were receiving. They're going to have to try to make it up another way. Hey, handy military conflict. Quick, fast, easy. Except Trump keeps showing up with a bucket of water and putting the fires out. How much were they planning on making off of that India-Pakistan thing? It doesn't matter because they never got it started how much they planned to make from that. How much did they plan to make from setting up another Middle Eastern country invasion and occupation? Except this time it was going to be Iran. How much money were they going to make on that they're now not going to make? I love the fact Trump bombed those nuclear sites back in the Stone Age and utterly destroyed them. But the people who were hoping to sucker him into a ground invasion have to sit there with a tight, fake smile on their face and say, "Thank you very much. Thank you very much, you son of a bitch, motherfucker. Thank you very much for ending the threat we've been using for 40 years to drive geopolitics and our military contracting and our war profiteering in the region. Thank you very fucking much." You know they didn't really want him to do that, right? Bomb the sites and utterly destroy them after alerting them to get DTFO so nobody died. You know they didn't want him to really do that, right? Well, they didn't. How's anybody going to make any money now? Then there's the treaties in Africa you just signed. Shit, they can't even the smaller conflicts. Well, we didn't get the India-Pakistan thing, and we stood to make this much from it. Oh, well, we didn't get the Iran thing. Thank God for Africa, right? You've been paying attention to Africa recently. You can see how the ground is shifting down there, too, with the mineral deals and the United Nations of Africa that's forming, which is something the globalist cult has been deliberately preventing for a long time now. Anybody tries to make a move to make a United States of Africa happen, they jump in there and kill that son of a bitch. Or they drive him from power and they put one of their own puppets in his place. They usually call that guy a communist. The guy they're replacing or killing, I mean. We got rid of that dirty commie and we put our safe democratic guy in his place. Yeah, a lot of changes going on down there in Africa. And they can't even make the 2 or 3 billion they were planning to make off that continued African conflict because Trump got a treaty signed. Shut. Hitting hard out there for a warmonger. It is. Because remember, the whole system, it's not just us, the way they get control of all these countries. Create a central bank, use your Operation Gladio First World paramilitary forces that you formed and armed and trained. Sheep dip them or disguise them as a criminal cartel or a new terrorist group. Unleash them on a region, destabilize it. Oh, look, we better go put that fire out over there in Africa. While those Islamic militants that suddenly showed up in Africa, they're killing everybody. Yeah, we better get in there and do a shit ton of arms sales and military contracting and base building, and everybody will make money. Yeah. That's why, that's why they created Al Qaeda, right? That's why the same people created ISIS. They took one of the first world paramilitary forces, Operation Gladio. Look it up. Our first world paramilitary force they created, armed, funded, and controlled, and they disguised it as a terrorist group, usually radicalized Islamists, and they unleashed them on a region. And then all the think tanks in Washington, D.C. go, to maintain the stability of the region, we will have to commit this much military resources to restabilize it. After the CIA working behind the scenes, sent a paramilitary force in there to destabilize it. Start the fire, sell the water. They've been doing this shit for over 100 years. Trump is wise to the game. He's watched all of this unfold. He is shutting it down. It makes them very angry. They bring all of these people, you see them on TV all the time, John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, Mark Milley, all these former military guys, advisors, up to their eyeballs in the old system of using the wars, constant wars and conflicts to make profits and build up the debt to give the globalist cult more and more control of the countries where they own the central banks. They get on TV and they whine and they cry and they bitch and they moan. We need to send more money to Ukraine. We can't abandon Ukraine. This is terrible. Oh, this is so sad. We need to do charities for Ukrainian hospitals and shit. Do you notice right after Donald Trump told the European Union, we're going to stop just sending free weapons to Ukraine? You're going to have to buy them for Ukraine now. All of a sudden, the EU starts, we're going to start a lot of fraud going on here. I mean, as long as it wasn't their money, okay? They didn't give a shit. The moment Trump sets it up, you're paying for this. Then you go, we're going to stop a lot of this sending weapons to Ukraine because there's some fraud. We have concerns about fraud here. Oh, yeah, why weren't you saying this 3 freaking years ago? Before Zelensky came out and said, yeah, 100 billion of this money supposedly sent here, I never saw it. Who knows where it went? So there's a system carefully and incrementally put in place. The people who run much of our government up until recently, their real job was to protect that system and keep it going, keep the debt growing, keep the money coming in and going out to where it needed to go. Maintaining the conflicts, maintaining the wars, maintaining the money laundering, maintaining the theft. That was their real job. Don't ever misunderstand what Congress's real job is. The people are saying, why isn't Congress lifting a finger to help Trump implement his America First agenda? Doesn't and Trump, the leader of the GOP party, this should be a no-brainer. Pass his America First agenda. Give him all the nominees that he has waiting to be confirmed. Give them to him. What do you think? What do you think the congressional GOP and the congressional Democrat uniparty? What do you think their real job is? You think it's to help Trump destroy the uniparty system? You think it's to help Trump destroy the control of the globalist cult over Washington, D.C., our nation, and the rest of the world? You think they want to help Donald Trump do that? Well, they don't. They don't want to help him. Even if you wanted to say it's not motivated by higher loyalty, politics is a self-centered sport. All these GOP senators that are refusing to pass Trump's nominees, they all just went on vacation again. They're gonna keep they're gonna have a meeting every couple of days to keep the Senate out of recess so Trump can't make any recess appointments. Why? Well, even if you want to say, I think a lot of it is motivated by higher loyalties. Uh, the GOP in the Senate is compromised the same way the Democrats are. They'll own many of them by the globalist cult members. But even those that aren't, politics is a dirty sport. You have GOP senators saying, Trump, you want 135 nominees passed. Great. I want something too. And you better give it to me. Or I'm not going to vote for shit. I want $200 million for this project in my state with my name on it so I can get reelected. You give me what I want. I will vote for your nominee. They want deals. And for weeks now, what have we seen on social media? People saying, telling GOP senators to either vote to confirm Trump's nominees or go into recess so he can make appointments himself, recess appointments. I've seen the narrative building for weeks. They just refused to do that before they all marched out the door for their summer vacation. I wasn't surprised by that because I never thought they would do that. Why would they not go into recess? Because going into recess would be handing over all of their leverage to get the deals they want for themselves, for their states, for their reelection. They're not gonna give up their leverage. Trump won't give me what I want. All it takes is a handful of senators. Trump knows the nominees won't pass because he's not willing to do that kind of a deal with some of these senators. Because some people are going to say, why doesn't Trump just do the deal then? So what? Who cares? He needs to get the nominees in. But some of these senators, they'll never go public with what they're asking for to get their vote. Some will volunteer. Yeah, I'm hoping to get this $2 million project or a bridge named after me in South Carolina or whatever the hell it is. They'll never, some of them will come out and say, yeah, I'm hoping to exchange my vote for this deal for my state. Most of them won't tell you shit. They won't say anything about what they're telling Trump, the terms they're offering Trump to vote for his nominees. Here's what I want. You give me this and I'll vote for your guy. You give me $400 million for this state project with my name attached to it, so I can use this for my re-election campaign this November. You do that, and I'll vote for your guy. So I've watched for weeks. Everybody is demanding these GOP senators give up all leverage. You think they would ever do that? You don't understand how politics works. They were never going to do that. No. Congress's real job, but for a long time now, has been to hide the corruption. Keep your attention distracted with the fake Team Red versus Team Blue fight, usually over money or policy, foreign policy, domestic policy, abortion, whatever. Keep you distracted by that. So the looting and the money laundering and the increase to our debt and the increase of the globalist cult control could continue without anybody being the wiser about it. That was their real job. Time for a What If I Told You meme that I've had for many years. What if I told you? I made it the other day. So a lot of people don't grasp this. They think Trump is the leader of the GOP. They're happy with him, and they should follow his lead and give him what he wants. And when you start thinking that, you really don't understand how politics works. You don't understand how massively pissed these GOP Senate people are right now at Donald Trump. You don't understand. I think there's good evidence to show they're more pissed at Trump right now than the Democrat swamp is. For reasons I've been explaining to you, I'll highlight it for a second here. So the meme says, what if I told you the GOP swamp is even madder at Trump right now than the Democrat swamp is? Well, the reason for that is you as conservatives or MAGA people, America First people, you know the Democrats were the bad guy. Team Blue was the bad guy. But a lot of Americans in the conservative space, the MAGA space, the America First space, they still look at certain GOP members of Congress as being the good guys. They're fighting for us, for you and me. They're fighting our Team Red versus their Team Blue. And you spent years, decades even watching Fox News where they put these congressmen on that talk about how hard they're fighting for you and me to stop that evil, awful, terrible Team Blue. I fight for you. I fight Schumer. I fight that witch Pelosi. I fight that dumbass Jeffries. I fight for you. And what has Donald Trump been showing you for 6 months now about their act? Not the Democrat Uniparty Act. What's he been showing you about the GOP Swamp Act? Who is he really exposing? You already knew not to trust the Democrat Uniparty. But a lot of you people, because you still watch Fox News and you still read all these conservative magazines and all these conservative newspapers and websites, you're still having your mind programmed every day as if the Team Red versus Team Blue fight is a real fight. And it ain't. It ain't real. These people that spent years pretending they were fighting for you, trying to keep that spending down in Congress, fighting those drunken sailor Democrats over spending. They're ramping up our national debt like you wouldn't believe, but I'm fighting for you. They still won't talk about how in the blue fuck did all those hundreds of billions get looted out of our treasury every year for the past couple of decades. So basically, we're talking about trillions of dollars while these fiscal hawk conservatarians were minding the store for you and me. How in the hell was all of this theft and money laundering able to go on if they were doing their jobs? So either it means they're really freaking incompetent or they were in on it. Isn't that the options you're left with? GOP senators like Rand Paul and House representatives like Thomas Massey, who've been doing the Conservatarian Fiscal Hawk Act ever since they got up there, do not want to talk about how all of this money laundering and theft went on while they're talking to us about they're on top of everything that's happening. They're providing real oversight. They know where our money's going. They're fighting to stop the waste, fraud, and abuse. Either they didn't know all of this was going on, in which case they're pretty much useless, or they did know it was going on. And they were playing us. So which is it? Which is it? They hate that they're in a position. This guy right here put them in a position where they have to answer that question. Like, man, to avoid answering it, the media is not going to press them on it. But they managed to avoid answering the question. If you were really doing this fiscal hawk shit that you talk about, how in the when you have been up there for 15, 20 years, how in the world did they manage to steal all this money, send it to all these NGOs, and then launder it back to themselves and give it to the fake news media to prop up fake news media? Send it to these NGOs to fund a literal mass migration of a new slave class into our country, and to fund the building of a censorship state, to fund the building and the creation of viruses and launch a pandemic, to fund the rigging of elections. How did all of this escape your attention while you were minding the store? They don't want to talk about that. So they don't. But every day, look, they go on these news shows, they go on these podcasts, they go on these news networks. They talk about how hard they're fighting for you. Team Red versus Team Blue. Here's how I'm sticking it to the Democrats today for you, my wonderful people. And it's all bullshit. And it's all an act. So, no, whichever it is, either their real agenda has always been to hide the corruption and protect it, keep it out of your sight, and keep you from knowing about it. And they played their role in all the fake drama, Team Red versus Team Blue drama. They played a role there. Or they were absolutely clueless that this was going on. And they do not want to admit that to you. One or the other. Either way, they're not happy that son of a bitch Donald J. Trump put them in this position. He and Elon Musk both, with the Doge thing, put them in this position by exposing all that massive fraud out of our treasury. So they don't feel particularly compelled to vote on his nominees, lift his finger, and help him advance his America First agenda and vote on his nominees. He spent 6 months making these people look absolutely useless. Yeah, I see Boone making comments here. That's the good one. Let me share that real quick. I've been reading the comments, by the way. Yeah, Trump is waking everybody up. The first thing you have to do before I heard a wise statement was before you take a fence down, you better understand why it was put up there in the first place. That also applies to taking down a corrupt system. Before you start to take down a corrupt system, you better make sure enough people understand and see that it is corrupt and why it needs to be taken down and replaced by something better. And in Trump's first term, he did not have enough people understanding that yet. And this is why the first 3 months of this second Trump term, as all that stuff came out about what was going on at the Treasury and what was going on at the Social Security Administration and what was going on with all this foreign aid and all these spending requests that they didn't turn down one in 20 years. Hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars shoveled out of the Treasury every year, and nobody knows where, when, or what was done with it. You had to show people that before you could take the next step. Because there's so many people, so many of the experts these people trust. You see them on TV every day. So many of the experts are so deeply invested in this corrupt system. If you tried to do this without showing everybody first how bad it really was, every single one of these TV experts, the analysts that they bring out to explain everything to you, okay, they would stop it. They would get enough of the public to not go along with it. That's why that first 3 months from February to June was so important. March, February to the end of April, actually, they were very important. Before Trump can make some of the moves he's making now on the Fed, the Federal Reserve, he had to show everybody. Not everybody was awake to this. A lot of people have just joined the Trump team and just started being MAGA, and many of them were formerly very anti-Trump. They just came aboard in the last year or so. They don't know any of this. They're just finding it out now, especially about SpyGate. They're finding stuff out about SpyGate for the first time that people, like a lot of my fans, a lot of my followers have known about this for years and years and years. It's old information to them. They're not interested in it. They don't want to hear about it again. They just want to see arrests. Okay. But for a lot of people, in just the last year or so, they're finding out all this stuff right now, right this minute, the first time they're seeing it. And that's important. So if you've been awake for a long time, it's like, Jesus, get on with it already, okay? And I understand the frustration. But this had to play out in a way that Trump can build that popular support to the point that 75 to 80% of the public, when the final moves finally happen, 75% of the public will not be saying, oh my God, you can't do that. All the experts on the TV are saying you can't do that. Okay, no. That's not what they're going to be saying. When Trump finally makes the moves on whether it's SpyGate, the Federal Reserve, a lot of things that they've been doing, vaccines, when he makes the final move, the public's not going to say, oh my God, you can't do that. The TV experts all say this is insane. No. The public's going to say, it's about time. Yay! I fully support that. Go faster, go harder. 75, 80%. When he moves, he's gonna have overwhelming public support. It doesn't matter what all the talking heads on the freaking TV say. We just had it proven to us yet again. The talking head class and back in February and March, the trade and tariff thing. Oh my God, somebody stop him. Weeks we heard. This is insane. Somebody stop this lunatic. Oh my God, I can't believe he got percent and lunatic to go around with this. Somebody stop these people. They're gonna wreck everything. Yeah, well, they're gonna wreck a certain thing, yes. The evil debt slavery system, they are utterly gutting it like a fish and deboning it. That's a beautiful thing, man. The beautiful thing. And you can't just tell people, oh, I have to do this because it's so bad. The corruption is so bad. But you can't see it. It would be too awkward for me to show you. Just take my word for it. Okay. You can't tell people certain things. Some people, they're showing this much and they wake up. Other people don't get it. Most people still don't get it. They're showing this much, and 1/3 of the population woke up. And then they showed you this much, and another third of the population woke up. And now, before Trump moves, he's going to open it up and reveal this much. Okay. And the people who woke up here are saying, what's taking so long, damn it? Let's get to the end game already. And the people who woke up when it was this much being exposed, you're always going to have that. It's taking too long. I see some accounts now, all they do all day on social media. When are the arrests? Where's the arrest? Give me an arrest. Just one arrest. I understand the frustration why I don't share it. I mean, when you woke up when they were showing you this much, you woke up 5, 6, 7 years ago when they showed you this much. Now we're here. They showed everybody this much. Man, a couple million people woke up in the last couple months. There's another thing, another lie people need to get out of their heads. Oh, everybody that was gonna anybody that was gonna wake up woke up already. Let's just skip to the end, all right? You can you can program your mind by repeating a lie to yourself over and over and over again. I had people telling me this 5, 6 years ago at the end of the first Trump term before, they stole the election. It looked like Trump was going to be reelected easily. Um, everybody that woke up, everybody that's going to wake up, woke up already. Stop saying people need to wake up. We don't need to see anymore. Just skip to the end already. Okay? Yeah, I was hearing this back in 2019. Skip to the end already, damn it. Well, no, you can't do that yet. Not in 2019. It will happen when the people that are handling this determine that enough of the public is awake. So if they take these next steps, everybody will survive it. I'll put it that way. The most dangerous thing that can happen when you're fighting a globalist cult, a truly international globalist cult that has control of so many countries around the world via the debt slavery system that they install through all their central banks everywhere. Check and see how many central banks around the world are owned by the same family someday. They've set this system up, they've carefully implemented it. Okay. You go early before you have enough overwhelming public support where you know you're going to get all 9 heads lopped off of that hydra all at once. You have to be 100% sure that you're going to get all 9 of them, or you don't go, because you get one shot at this. If you screw it up, even one of these heads survive, or one of these families survive. They'll go back into the darkness, and in a couple of years, they'll be back. No, you have to handle this carefully. You have to do this according to a definite plan to make sure that when you bring this, it's a silent war. I call it the silent war. You bring this out into the open, and you start hanging these people, and you start shooting these people, or you announce that you've already hanged and shot some of them. You have to have the public at a place where society does not collapse, civilization does not collapse. The old understanding of what civilization rested on, where all the boundaries were. When you start taking down the people who created that old world in their mind, you start taking them, you start dragging them into the light and showing who these people really are and what they've really been doing. Enough of the public, not just in America, but worldwide, enough of the public had to be ready to see that. They're not ready to see it. It will be a massive shock. I'm not joking when I say countries might not survive it to discover what the ruling elite class has actually been doing. The system, you have to have something ready almost immediately to step in to replace it. Otherwise, you end up in a Mad Max Road Warrior type situation. You have a complete, utter collapse And that has never been the goal of the Great Awakening to achieve a complete and total civilizational collapse around the globe. That's never been the goal. But when you're taking down a centuries old infrastructure that's been put in place by certain people, certain vile people, to do vile things to the people of the world, and you start taking that apart, you have to have something ready that you're building parallel to it to step in to prevent the total collapse. That's why some of the Q posts that people struggle to understand the most are the ones where Q talked about how carefully this had to be done. You will not get total justice. Some people, you cannot do this in a way that provokes a war where hundreds of millions are going to die. It cannot be done that way. And that means some people won't be removed. Some people are going to be leveraged and to participate in their own demise. They're going to get new handlers who are going to tell them what to do in taking apart their own institutions. As the new America First institutions are being prepared to replace them. Some people, will say, we want them all hung. We want them all shot, every last one of them. I can't get that. Fuck it all. Burn it all down. They'll make an emotional argument. The people running this do not want to destroy the world. The whole goal of it was to save the world. You don't do that by doing it in a way where you provoke a conflict that will cause wars to erupt where hundreds of millions of people could die. You do this in a way. You have to do it slowly when you wake people up gradually. And when enough people are awake, then you can move. They have an idea when the tipping point is reached. Well, okay, I think we can start dragging these motherfuckers out into the light, the full light, and start shooting and hanging them. I think we're okay. I'm expecting to be there by the end of Trump's term, probably by around 226 ish, 227 is when we'll reach that point. There are people who scream and cry and whine and bitch and moan. Oh, that's too long. That's too long. That's 2 years from now. Good thing you're not in charge of running an operation like this because you're emotional about it. And the people who are taking down the globalist cult and robbing the cult of its control revenues one by one by one by one. They spent decades planning this. And they understood you don't do this instantly. When people scream and say, what about all the hundreds of millions of people? And say you're right, Kate. Say they started planning this 20, 30, 40. Right, or maybe right when they're around the time they shot Kennedy. How many hundreds of millions of people did this globalist cult kill in this world over the last 40? What you're describing is evil. It's evil. You either do this instantly and you take it down all at once and you save all those people, or you don't do it. You either free everybody all at once and you take down the cult all at once in just a couple of days, weeks, or months, or you don't attempt something like this. war is all hell. And the people who found each other in all these various nations of the world, the national sovereign patriots, they put their head together. They realized this wasn't going to be quick, and this wasn't going to be fast, and this wasn't going to be done instantly. If they were going to try this, they were going to attempt this, it was going to take years and years of careful, surreptitious, quiet positioning to get into a position where they could even begin the silent war with this globalist cult. It was going to take a while, and some people think that this silent war has been going on long before Kennedy was taken out by this cult. That was a massive setback for the good guys. But once you understand the scope of the problem, understand what you're fighting, you would understand as an artist, as somebody who removes all emotion. It's like that Doctor Strange moment in the Avengers film. I spun all the different millions of scenarios. There was only one where we win. Just the one. That means we better do this slow, we better do this carefully. And we better not get caught until we're ready, or we'll all be wiped out. A silent war. The people running this understood the nature of what they were about to attempt whenever they started it. It could be for a couple of years, even a decade or two. The globalist cult didn't even realize these people were there. You do not free the world from a globalist death cult that's been in charge and running shit internationally in over 3 dozen of what are considered the Western world's most developed countries. You don't take that down overnight. You can't even expose it overnight. Well, if if you came out and just dropped everything you knew right out there in the open, the massive shock would literally cause civilization to tear itself apart. And you have people out there saying, yeah, who gives a shit? Burn it all down. I don't care. But that's not the kind of person that was involved in this. I hope you can see that. These people are not in this to go down in a blaze of glory. Let's charge right into the guns and go down in a blaze of glory. That's not who they are. That's not what they want to do. They're in this to win. And they very carefully spent years planning and strategizing how they were going to go about doing this. And they came up with a strategy that looked like it could work. But it wasn't going to happen overnight. It wasn't even going to happen within a year or two. And the enemies are fighting. Every move you make, they're watching you. They get to make a counter move. The enemy always gets a vote. Okay, we're rolling out this move over here. They're going to see it. How are they likely to respond to that? Okay, emotional people do not thrive in a conflict like that. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Okay, and too many people are emotional. Too many people would not be able to handle that kind of a conflict. So as Trump continues to make these moves to expose the Fed and lure it out into the open and wake up more of the country to what the Federal Reserve actually is and who actually owns the Federal Reserve and who's using our massive national debt to grab our country by the balls and control it and dictate everything, and how Trump is freeing ourselves from that debt slavery system. You always have somebody saying, "Oh, it's got to be going faster. Why is it taking so long?" Those people will never go away. They'll always be here. But you have to understand, Trump is not going to be emotional about this. The people behind Trump are not going to be emotional about this. This is literally a conflict for all the marbles. And if you're going to play this awful game, if you're going to step into an arena like this with the ruthless, probably the most ruthless, most evil enemy in existence, you cannot be goaded into emotional actions. You cannot act in a hasty manner. And so even as Trump continues to expose the Fed, there's people will be screaming. You'll see them on social media every day. Taking too long, taking too long. Don't give a shit. Where's the arrest? Where's the arrest? Give me an arrest. Just one freaking arrest. They'll never go away. But thank God they're not running anything. And the people who are running everything are artists. And they're able to divorce any emotions they have from the decisions that they make. It took a long time for us to get here. It took a lot of preparation for us to get here to where we stand here now at the dawn of a new golden age. And there will always be people, yelling faster, faster, faster. Hurry up already, God damn it. That will never change. Just understand there's a reason why those people aren't in charge of this. And thank God for it. Okay, God bless you. Thank you all for watching. I'll be streaming again on Wednesday at 10 a.m. See you all then.